All right, so in the previous lesson, we talked about adding and subtracting complex numbers. In this lesson, in lesson 13, we're going to talk about multiplying complex numbers. And just like with adding and subtracting, the process is going to be exactly the same as when we were multiplying polynomials. The process is going to be exactly the same. We're going to use the box method to multiply those out. The only difference is, as it says here, when we simplify, we have to use the fact that I squared is equal to -1. So with that in mind, let's go to the examples. So number 1, we have 8 plus I times -5 plus 3I. So I will go ahead and set up the box method. So 8 plus I, -5 plus 3I. Let's see what we get. So 8 times -5 is going to be -40. -5 times I is going to be -5I. Up here, 8 times 3I is going to be 24I. And over here, 3I times I is going to be 3I squared. All right, so if I put everything together, I'm going to have -40, and then here I'll have 24 and -5I. It's going to be positive 19I plus 3I squared. And if we were dealing with polynomials, we would be done here. This would be the answer. But because we're dealing with complex numbers, we have to use the fact that I squared is equal to 1. So if I look at this term right here, 3 times I squared is really 3 times -1. And 3 times -1 is -3. All right. So 3I squared is -3. So now I have -40 and -3. And if I put those together, that becomes -43 plus 19I. So when I simplify here, I end up with another set of like terms, and I combine those to -43 plus 19I. So that is the answer to number 1. One thing I want to call your attention to, notice when I wrote the answer, notice I wrote the real number first and the imaginary number, the I term, second. That's how we write the answer. We write the real number first and the imaginary or I term second. Number 2, 3 plus 2I squared. Doesn't look like at face value that we're multiplying two complex numbers, but remember, anything squared is really that thing by itself. So 3 plus 2I squared is really 3 plus 2I times 3 plus 2I. So that's what I'm really multiplying out. So when I set up the box method for number 2, I'm going to have 3 plus 2I and 3 plus 2I. So let's see what happens here. So 3 times 3 is 9. 2I times 3 is 6I. Up here, 2I times 3 is 6I. And down here, 2I times 2I is 4I squared. So I put that together and I end up with 9 plus 6I and 6I becomes 12I plus 4I squared. again, because we are dealing with complex numbers, I have to simplify. So in this last term here, 4 times I squared is really 4 times -1. All right, and if I put that together, 4 times -1 is really -4. So now I have -4 and +9. -4 and +9 is +5. So my answer is going to be 5 plus 12i. So the answer to number 2 is 5 plus 12i. Okay. Let's look at number 3. So number 3, if we look at number 3, notice the complex numbers are almost exactly the same. Notice one of them has a plus in the middle, one of them has a minus in the middle. Okay. It turns out when you have a complex number that looks exactly the same, the only difference is there's a plus versus a minus in the middle, like we have here. We call these conjugates. So 2 complex numbers are called conjugates if they look almost the same, with the only difference being that one has a plus in the middle and one has a minus in the middle. We're going to see what happens when we actually multiply 2 conjugates together. So if I set up my box method, I'm going to have 3 plus 2i and 3 minus 2i. So let's see what happens. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times -2i is -6i. 3 times 2i is 6i. And then down here, -2i times +2i is going to be a -4i squared. A -4i squared. And if we put that together, let's see what happens. I have 9. And then this diagonal, notice I have 6i and -6i. Those two things are going to cancel each other out. 6i and -6i cancel each other out. So I end up with 9 minus 4i squared. I still have to simplify. I still have to use the fact that I squared equals -1. So again, with this term, -4i squared, -4i squared is really -4 times -1. All right, and -4 times -1 is +4. So -4i squared becomes +4. So now I have 9 and 4. If I put those together, that becomes 13. So the answer is 13. So to go back to what I said a couple minutes ago, if I have these so-called conjugates, if I multiply 2 conjugates together, I actually end up getting a real number, meaning I get a number without an I in it. So the answer to number 3 is 19, and that is it for this lesson.